guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I have my first book haul of 2021. So today I'm going to be showing you all of the books that I have acquired throughout the first 4 months of the year. If you've been with my channel for a while, you will know that I used to do book hauls monthly. However, I have shifted my focus a little bit in 2021. I've started to tackle a lot of the things that I've had on my shelves for a really long time. I've stopped buying as many books unless I actually need them, like I'm going to read them in the very near future. And I do feel like that is going to be reflected in this book haul because I did do a rough count. I'm not sure exactly how many books I have today. I know that it's over 30 but not more than 40, but I have actually read over a third of the books that I'm going to be showing you guys today, which I think is actually a pretty good ratio considering quite a few of these are like PR products, whether that be from publishers or like subscription boxes. So as usual with my book hauls, I'm going to be splitting this down into sections of where I acquired each of the books from, and these sections we have in this video today are ebooks, books that I bought, books that have been gifted to me, books from publishers, and also subscription box books. So that being said, let us get into it, starting with the ebooks, because if I don't do them first I will forget about them. So the first ebook I have is Polar Bond. If you remember, way back in February I did a themed reading vlog for Polathon, which is a readathon hosted by Jade from Jade Ray Reads, where I read 4, I think, polar bear romances. Most of them were free on either like Scribd or Kindle Unlimited, but one I did have to pay for, and this one follows a young woman who is attending her best friend's wedding, and she is attracted to the best man, who happens to be a polar bear shifter. It is really short, it's less than 100 pages, so I'm not really going to go into any more detail than that, but if you want my thoughts I will link that polar bear vlog up here if you guys are interested in watching it at all. The other ebook I purchased was Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. This is the 3.5 installment in the Stormlight Archive. It is a novella. I think it's like a couple of 100 pages. I have read this one as well, and it follows 2 of the like side characters of the Stormlight Archive. One of them is Ryzen, who we've seen intermittently, mainly throughout the interludes of the core books, and the other one is Lopen, who is a member of Bridge 4, which are quite a big part of the Stormlight Archive. The plot of this I'm not really going to say much because it is like a 3.5 installment, but essentially Ryzen would like to go on a voyage to this mythical island so that she can hopefully gather some information to help a friend, and because this could be quite a dangerous task, Lopen and a few other characters are sent with her to protect her. The last ebook I have is actually an e-arc, and that is Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. I have just been approved for this on NetGalley. It's released in October and it is a young adult fantasy. I requested it because I've read The Merciless Crow by Margaret Owen and really enjoyed it, and this one is a fairy tale-esque story. I'm not sure if it is a direct retelling, but it is about a princess who was betrothed to a prince of a faraway kingdom. So the princess set off with her maid to go to this faraway kingdom, and instead of serving the princess, the maid actually took her place. So for a year the princess worked as a servant while the maid became the princess of the faraway kingdom, until the truth came out and the princess took her rightful place. And then this book is the story of the maid from the maid's perspective. I'm thinking after this has all taken place. Regardless, I really like fairy tale-esque stories, and I know I like Margaret Owen. I do want to be reading this ahead of its release, like quite a bit ahead, so I'm looking to fit it into the next couple of months, but the release date is October, so I do have some time to get to it if things come up and I can't quite squeeze it in. So that segues us quite nicely into books that I have been sent by publishers, the first one of which is Malice by Heather Walter. Both of these were sent to me for review by Del Rey, so thank you so much to Del Rey for that. This one is the art copy, which is absolutely stunning, and this one is the final UK copy. I have just read this, and this is also a fairy tale story, as this is a new adult retelling of Sleeping Beauty with a female romance from the perspective of an evil fairy. The only other book that I've received from publishers so far this year is Dream Country by Ashay Brown. I have also just read this one, and this is a young adult fantasy that follows triplet gods who are the gods of sleep, dreams, and nightmares respectively. It is set in this kind of dimension that resides like above the human realm, where like time moves quite differently, and each of the gods' realms is separated by gates of horn and ivory. They used to all live together, they used to get on. However, one day their mother was murdered and they are all suspects in the murder. Since then, they don't like each other anymore and they are separated, and the story really starts to kick off when the god of sleep finds a baby in his kingdom whose cry is rattling the gates that separate the realm of the gods. This one also draws on Kenyan, Jamaican and Brazilian mythology, and it is really well written and atmospheric, so I would recommend looking into this one if you are interested. For the books that have been gifted to me, the first two are from the lovely Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, so thank you so much, Gav. The first one is A Dance with Dragons by George R.R. Martin in this beautiful leather-bound slipcase edition. Gav has been gifting me one of these for like every birthday and Christmas for the last like 3 years, and this is the final one I need in the collection. These editions have the leather-bound case, and then they have the leather-bound book with gilt edges. They also have the map of Westeros embossed on the cover and illustrated end pages. And I'm sure, of course, you guys know A Dance with Dragons is the 5th installment and the final published to-date installment in the Game of Thrones series. Really have my fingers crossed that we're going to see Winds of Winter sometime soon, because I would really like that. The other book that Gavin gifted to me was Mari and the Night Brothers by B.B. Alston. I've heard amazing things about this and I'm really intrigued to read it. So this one follows a young girl called Mari whose brother has gone missing, and she's invited to attend a trial at the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, and she accepts and goes to this trial because she thinks it is her chance to save her brother. But first she has to wrap her head around the new world that she's entered into, where magicians, aliens and mermaids are all real. I don't read a whole ton of middle grade, but I really love the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend, and I've heard from multiple reviews that this has strong Nevermore vibes. It's like a Nevermore style story, and I am so excited for that, because Nevermore is now not only a children's series that I love, it is one of my favorite series of all time, so I could definitely do with more books like that in my life. The next one was gifted to me by Jade from Jade Ray Reads, and that is Tracer's Blade by Sebastian D. Castell, which is the first book in his adult fantasy series, The Greatcoats. So this follows a group of men who used to be the king's greatcoats. However, the king is dead, so they now work for a nobleman that they can't stand and who doesn't pay them. However, things start to change for the group when their employer is found dead and evidence is planted that makes it look like they killed him. And the final book that was gifted to me is A Touch of Darkness by Scarlett St. Clair. This one was from Linda, so thank you so much, Linda, for sending this to me. This is a new adult fantasy romance Hades and Persephone retelling. I believe that it is set in a contemporary world where Hades is the god of a underworld that has like casinos and gambling, and Persephone is the goddess of spring. She's supposed to be able to bring things to life with her touch. However, something is horribly wrong with her powers and everything she touches shrivels and dies. So through a chance encounter with Hades, Persephone ends up entering into a contract with him where she must bring life to the underworld, and if she can't do that, then she has to stay there forever. So moving on to the books that I bought for myself, first off, just gonna get these out of the way. I have 3 editions of A Court of Silver Flames by Sarah J Maas. This one is still in the bag because it came in the Illumicrate box with the dust jackets. I bought the box for the dust jackets. It did just come with like a standard edition of the book. However, I don't need this because I do have 2 others. The second edition I have is the tour edition. I did attend the UK virtual event for A Court of Silver Flames, mainly because we got the tour edition, and I will say there's nothing incredibly special about it. Just as somebody who does collect Sarah J Maas books, I wanted this for my collection. And then the last one I have is the Waterstones edition. This is the one that I actually read. It has my tabs in it, and the cover on this is the one that was included in that Illumicrate box that I mentioned, but this one is the Waterstones edition, so it has an exclusive bonus chapter at the end, and the one included in this one is the Faceand chapter. So if you guys are unfamiliar with A Court of Silver Flames at all, hi, I'm Mass Trash. I read a lot of her books, but this is the newest installment in the ACOTAR series, and this particular book follows Nesta and Cassian, but the ACOTAR series starts off with a young woman called Feyre who is hunting to try and feed her family when she accidentally kills a Fey shifter in the form form of a wolf. Because of this, the High Lord of Spring comes to the human lands where she lives and tells her that because she murdered one of his people, she must go to the lands of Spring with him and live out the rest of her life there. The book that I'm currently reading is Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I only got this because it is the book I have to read for not completing my Bookopoly TBR last month. No tea with this. I don't think I'm gonna hate it or anything. I'm 100 pages into it and it's perfectly fine so far. It's just a really hyped book that I had very little interest in reading, as this is just a standard new adult romance between the son of the president of the US and one of the princes of the UK. It's like contemporary realistic in terms of it's set in a real world with like realistic characters and stuff, but in this world there is a female president of America and the prince in here is of course not one of the actual princes. We then have You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes. This is the third book in the You series, which is one of my favorite series. This is an adult thriller. The first book, You, has had a Netflix show adaptation, and in that one we are following a young man called Joe who seems like a pretty decent guy. He works in a bookstore. However, he is also a stalker, and when a young woman comes into the store where he works, he quickly becomes infatuated with her. I have also read this one, not my favorite installment in the series so far, but I'm always up for reading more about Joe's shenanigans. Another pre-order was Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. I haven't read this one yet, but I will be doing very soon. This is the latest installment in the Grishaverse. It is the 7th book in the Grishaverse overall and the 2nd book in the Nikolai duology. So I can't really talk about this too much because King of Scars is pretty much spoilers for the rest of the books that come before it. But in King of Scars, we are following Nikolai and Zoya, who are in Ravka and kind of dealing with the repercussions of the Grisha trilogy. And we're also following Nina, who is one of the crows from Six of Crows, who is in Fjerda dealing with some personal stuff. I thought that the first book was quite disjointed in the character perspectives it follows, and it was actually my least favorite book in the Grishaverse to date. So I'm really interested in reading Rule of Wolves to see if it manages to pull it all together and make the story a little bit more cohesive. Yet another pre-order was The Mask Fallen by Samantha Shannon, which I had an arc of, so I have already read and reviewed this. This one is the 4th installment in the Bone Season series, and the Bone Season follows a young clairvoyant called Paige Mahoney in a world where it is illegal to be a clairvoyant. So the majority of clairvoyants in this futuristic version of London band together in underground crime gangs, and Paige is the demolisher of one of the most influential gangs in London. One day when she is traveling home to visit her father, she is caught using her powers and she thinks she's going to be killed for this. However, she's taken to this secret location which kind of throws open the world and introduces like a whole ton of really cool, really interesting elements. I also purchased both A Promise of Fire and Breath of Fire by Amanda Boucher, as in February I did actually host an interview with Amanda Boucher on my channel, which I will link up here if you would like to check that out. But these are the first 2 books in a fantasy romance trilogy that follow Cat and Griffin. So Cat is a soothsayer in the circus, as she is the kingmaker. She can tell when people are lying or telling the truth, and because of this she is a very powerful ally to have. So she's been on the run for a while and she's hiding out in this circus where she's masquerading as a soothsayer. Griffin finds her there and he is the beta of Cinta, which is a country that his family have just conquered. However, they are not magic wielders, so Griffin is looking for a powerful magic wielder who can help his family keep the peace. So he finds Kat. He doesn't actually know that she is the kingmaker, but he kidnaps her and drags her back to Cinta. I've read A Promise of Fire, really enjoyed it, and I'm really excited to get to Breath of Fire hopefully sometime soon. And then the last of the books that I bought this year are the first 3 books in the Witchland series in hardback by Susan Dennard. So I'm a co-host for the Witchlands Along, which is a read-along of this series that is hosted by Jade at JD Ray Reads. I have already read Truth Witch. I had a paperback copy of this, but I still needed to buy these 2 because I am a co-host for the read-along, and while I don't love the cover of this one, I adore these ones, so I just bought them all in hardback. So Truth Witch, and Wind Witch I picked up secondhand from World of Books, and then Blood Witch I managed to get hold of a new copy of this. So if you are unfamiliar with this series, Truth Witch mainly follows a young Truth Witch called Safi, and like Kat in A Promise of Fire, she has the power to tell when people are telling the truth or not, and because of that she is a very good ally to have. So she's kept her power a secret all her life. So her main dream in life is just to earn enough money so that she can get a place to live with her best friend Iseult, who is a thread witch, away from the city, away from the lives that they've got, and they can kind of start fresh. They accidentally stumble upon a blood witch who has the power to sense somebody's blood and then track them, and he notices that Safi is a blood witch and starts to hunt her down, which leads Safi and Iseult to get embroiled in this really complicated political plotline that focuses on a 20-year peace treaty that is about to come to an end, throwing a whole bunch of countries into chaos. And then the last stack that I have to go through is the subscription box books. So these are the ones that I know the least about because obviously I didn't choose them. They're selected to be put into the subscription box. I've broken them down into which subscription box they came from, and starting with Illumicrate, the first one we have is Winter's Orbit by Everina Maxwell. Now this is a sci-fi, but it has a very like fantasy style plot, but a prince who is a key figure in the alliance is killed and everybody starts scrambling to replace him before this alliance falls apart. It seems very like high political fantasy, but in a sci-fi like planetary world. I don't know how much is about like actual space as opposed to it just being like set on one planet, but I'm definitely intrigued by this one. I'm very excited to read it. We then have The Unbroken by C.L. Clarke. This one's an epic fantasy, and we have a main character who is a soldier who is sent back to her homeland to stop a rebellion, and then we also have another character who I believe is called Luga, who's looking for a turncoat to kind of be like an inside person in the army but also lead the rebellion. One that I'm really excited to read is A Dark and Hollow Star by Ashley Shuttleworth. This one seems to be a fairy fantasy that is set in Toronto. We have multiple courts of the Fae in here. There's also a murder mystery, and the main characters are 4 queer teenagers. I absolutely love this cover and I love that it's fairies, so I'm expecting great things from this one, and I'm trying to not set my expectations too high before I actually read it. From Fairy Loot we have This Golden Flame by Emily Victoria. This one is a sci-fi that has something in it called a scriptorium, who are dedicated to unlocking the ancient magic that will control this ancient automaton army, and the main character actually manages to awaken one which sends all of the people of the scriptorium after her. The most recent Fairy Loot book was The Bright and the Pale by Jessica Rubinkowski. This one follows a girl who joins the Thieves Guild with her best friend until her best friend is brutally murdered. However, she does discover that he is actually alive, and to find out what's going on there, she has to lead a group of cutthroats and thieves. And the final one we have for Fairy Loot is Law by Alexandra Bracken. This one takes place in modern New York City, and there is something called the Aegon, which is where gods are sent to Earth as mortals and they hunt down the ancient bloodlines of the gods so that they can get their immortality back. Sounds pretty cool, can't lie, and I do love a Greek myth book as well. From Owlcrate we have Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrienne Tooley. This one is a high fantasy. We have 2 main characters. One of them has been exiled from her coven, and because of this they've withdrawn her ability to love, and the only way that she can get those feelings back is to steal love from others. Our other main character's father falls ill from this magical plague, so they strike a bargain that if Tamsin will help Ren figure out the secret to the magical plague and where it's coming from, then Ren will let Tamsin steal her love. Next up we have The Gilded Ones by Namina Fauna. This one is a young adult fantasy that is quite focused on the colour of blood. So the main character has been living in fear of the day where this blood ceremony is going to be performed to test the colour of her blood. She's already kind of ostracized in her community for having like a weird ability, and she really wants her blood to run red. However, when the ceremony is actually performed, her blood runs gold, which is a sign of impurity. One of Owlcrate's special editions outside of their monthly box was Bonecryer's Dawn by Catherine Purdy. This is the sequel to Bonecryer's Moon, which I have read. I didn't love it, but this is only a duology and I am really intrigued to see how this wraps up. So this one is a young adult fantasy that surrounds Bonecryers, and Bonecryers are are women who are tasked with ferrying the spirits of the dead to the gates of heaven and hell. However, before they do this, they have to complete a ritual where they kill their one true love. So in this book, our main characters are two bone criers and also a boy called Gaston, who has a bone to pick with the bone criers, pun intended, I guess, as he witnessed one kill his father. So he would like to kill a bone crier in return. So he turns up on the bridge where one of the bone criers is performing the ritual that summons her true love so that she can kill him, and he ends up kidnapping her because he cannot run the risk of actually killing her in case he is actually her true love, because that would mean that he would die as well. Then we have These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong, which I'm really excited to read. This one is a Romeo and Juliet retelling that takes place in Shanghai in the 1920s, I believe, between two rival gang families. I've heard really good things about this and I'm really excited to read it because I love Shakespearean retellings, especially Romeo and Juliet. 1920s theme I'm kind of like so on, but the Shanghai setting I'm really excited about as well. And then the final book for this haul is A Universe of Wishes, which is a young adult anthology. I think all of the stories are fantasy, but I haven't read it yet, so I can't say for sure. And I think all of the stories in here center around like wishes and fairy tales, which is a vibe that I really love. Like, I don't usually love an anthology, but I feel like I can get behind a fairy tale theme. So that is it. Those are all the books that I've hauled in 2021 so far. I was gonna say I'm not gonna leave it this long before I do a haul again, just because of how hard it was to dig out all of these books to show to you guys today. It will probably be a little while before you have another like normal book haul from me, although I will probably have a birthday book haul going up sometime in the meantime when that rolls around. So down in the comments, please let me know which of these books that I have yet to read that you really enjoy and think I should prioritize, or like maybe you haven't read them yet and you just want my thoughts on them. But aside from that, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram and Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish candle website, the Instagram for that, and 10% off discount code. That's it from me today, guys. Bye.
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.